Hi everyone, Bandanner here. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to this week's WARNO devblog / news video, because they released a couple of other bits of news earlier in the week and we'll go over those first. So first up is the IFV meta. I'm not sure why they put meta IFV there. That's the German way of doing things, putting the words the wrong way around the sentence. Anyhow, so upcoming changes explained. So today we wanted to share an important update we are currently developing regarding IFVs. As part of our ongoing effort to keep the game balanced and engaging, we have been closely analysing the role of IFVs in the battlefield and how their versatility has shaped the current meta. Why the change? IFVs, aka infantry fighting vehicles, have become extremely versatile units, excelling in anti-infantry, anti-light armour and even anti-helicopter roles thanks to their autocannons. Additionally, their access to ATGMs allows them to threaten even heavy armour. Their numbers often lead to situations where ATGMs can saturate the battlefield, making IFVs reliable in almost any situation. This has resulted in a gameplay meta heavily centered around IFVs, sometimes overshadowing other types of units. The goal is to reduce their impact without making them irrelevant, keeping their presence as a signature element of certain divisions and representing their key role in modern conflicts. The work. So to address this, we will focus on maintaining the multi-role aspect of IFVs while slightly toning down their specific strengths. We will avoid simply reducing their availability, as IFVs are a defining feature in some divisions. And we will also avoid only increasing their price, since they are key infantry transports. Instead, we will explore targeted adjustments. Autocannons. The air range will be reduced, giving helicopters a more noticeable advantage. Precision will be slightly lowered to make IFVs less dominant in certain engagements. ATGMs. Missile reload times will be increased to limit the saturation effect and make mass ATGM fire less overwhelming, as IFVs are not purpose-built for ATGM deployment and their reloading mechanisms are often less efficient or more restrictive. Additional tweaks will be tested to fine-tune their impact. And we are looking into increasing the price gap between different versions of the same IFV, specifically between models equipped with ATGMs and those without. This adjustment aims to better reflect the added value and battlefield impact of IFVs carrying ATGMs while offering divisions more meaningful choices when building their decks. So the changes described above are still being tested and discussed. Our work on IFVs is not finished. If these first adjustments are not enough, we are ready to consider broader modifications to ensure a healthy balance. We are actively working with our QA team and strike team to evaluate the impact of these changes and will continue refining them based on their feedback and gameplay data. Our shared goal is to ensure IFVs remain enjoyable and essential without dominating the meta. Here's a list of divisions that are affected by these changes. I won't read them all out, I'm sure you know them all by now. Their pictures are there. You can pause the video and have a look. So, what are your impressions of the upcoming changes? Please feel free to discuss or ask any questions. We'll do our best to answer them. And you can either do that over on Steam, where the blog is, and you can see there's quite a few bits of discussion there, 201. Or you can feel free to ask questions in the comments and I'll answer if I can. I can't guarantee I can answer everything, but if I'm aware of what they're planning, then I certainly will. Anyhow, next bit of news. So, update on the freeze issue. Hello Commanders, we wish to address the freezing issue plaguing some of you for quite some time now. As we mentioned before, we have several engineers working on it full time, and we even bought several RTX cards for the sole purpose of studying that issue, which seems to be a lot less likely on other cards, specifically AMD cards. When this issue occurs, Nvidia's driver crashes. See, this goes back to AMD having the bad drivers and now Nvidia having the bad drivers. Swings and roundabouts, right? Anyhow, it causes a black screen in some cases. In other times, it just freezes and then continues because the driver restarts itself. It's not supposed to crash, whatever the application does, and Nvidia is currently working on fixing the issue. However, we can't place our faith in them fixing it soon. Our strategy right now is to understand what triggers this driver issue, and from there we will try to work around it. Be sure that we are dedicating on our energy to solving the issue, and we won't stop until it is fixed. But that means analysing, understanding, and hopefully fixing third-party code. It's quite a challenge because, yes, the latest Nvidia drivers have obviously caused issues, but some of us are running very old drivers and still getting intermittent issues since recent updates. So it's also not fully Nvidia's latest drivers, in my opinion. But Eugen are working hard on that, and they're aware that, you know, especially from those of us in Strike Team, have told them what drivers we're on and that we're getting this issue, etc., etc. But it's very hard to tie down because I've not been able to reproduce it in the same way every time. I don't think anyone has. So, yeah, I think it's a very difficult issue to work around. But at least it's on their mind constantly, and I can promise you they are talking about it elsewhere as well. Okay, and on to the main part of this week's devblog, which is the 8th Division coming to SOUTHAG, and that is the Soviet 31st Tank Division. Now, I'm not going to read this completely, I'm going to summarise. So, the 31st Tank Division was a direct successor to the World War II era 31st Tank Corps of the Red Army, and it was created in 1943. It took part in various battles, including Kursk and the Korsun Sheshvenko and Lovov Sandomier's operations. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing those wrong. And then the Battle of Dukla, which is an upcoming Steel Division 2 expansion. And the 31st Tank Corps kept fighting, including the Vistula Order Offensive, ending the war in Czechoslovakia. So that's where it was then. It was disbanded as a corps on May 11th, 1945, and reorganised to form the 31st Tank Division less than 2 months later. It was stationed in Hungary for a while, and the tank formation was featured in various exercises before taking part in the Warsaw Pact invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1968, the Prague Spring. So, and this was to end the Dubček's regime's liberalisation attempts, and there's a picture of that. So the division saw no more action after its brief foray during the 1968 Prague Spring. With the end of the Cold War, it returned to the USSR in 1990 before being converted to the 3rd Motorised Rifle Division in 1997. So, what happened to WARNO, though? Well, as you may have seen in Delayed Retribution, they kind of get surrounded. An attempt by the Soviet Central Group Forces, which is what they are part of, to outflank SOUTHAG at Nuremberg was met by a West German-American counterattack, which crushed its spearhead. This fateful battle will have serious ramifications for the Warsaw Pact and in turn lead to NATO's SOUTHAG taking a much more active and aggressive role further down south. More on that later. So, the opening stage of World War III, as explained repeatedly in the main Soviet combat formations facing NATO, are the ones stationed in East Germany. These first echelon divisions were some of the best equipped, so they had the T-64, the T-80, yada yada yada. Further south, the Central Group Forces, aka these ones, were based in Czechoslovakia and had a lower take on the pecking order. So these guys get the T-72. As mentioned, with the Czechoslovakian divisions, some Czechoslovakian units will be going to the 31st Tank Division, is what all of that says. So they will be getting some Czechoslovakian units, probably infantry specifically. So what does it look like in-game? So logistics. It's going to be mediocre. Mediocre slots, average cost. This is to reflect the Tank Division's fate within WARNO's World War III scenario. So they're surrounded. They can't get reinforcements. So they're going with that sort of aspect. The supply units, however, will include a FOB, which doesn't sound to me like they're cut off, because they've got a FOB. Yeah. Anyhow, as well as an MTLB, a Ural, a Karaz, and an Mi-8 MT. That's a lot of options for something that's cut off from supply. Command units available are the MT-LBU, the BMP-1K3, and the Mi-22 command variant of a large Mi-6. Infantry. Good, meaning slots available and their cost, and the availability of the Czechoslovakian infantry, taking into account the 31st Tank Division is an armoured division. So, better than some armoured divisions, I guess they're saying? Anyhow, the battle group gets the usual allotment of infantry, as seen with other Soviet tank divisions, including Motostrelki, partially deployed in BMP-1, part in BMP-2. There is no BTR infantry, however, except for the Sapri squads. New for the Soviet division is the presence of several cards of the Czechs, Velitel Strelku and Strelki squads, as well as the PTRS ATGM squads, all coming in either the soft skin or the OT64C APCs. Art. This category is average, meaning decent availability of slots, but they rise quickly in cost. An array of classic Soviet artillery can be deployed. The 2S 12 120mm mortar plus a D 30 120mm howitzer, the 2S 122 and the 2S 3M 152mm self-propelled guns, and the new unit, the 9A51 Prima, which is a heavier version of the Grad, using the Ural 4320 chassis featuring 50 rocket tubes instead of 40. It can fire its ammunition at longer ranges and will be loaded with cluster rockets. Czechoslovakians also bring some of their own firepower, the MVZ 52 82mm mortar, the D 30 120mm howitzer, with the latter being the same as the Soviet weapon above, and the RM VZ 51 130mm MLRS. Tank tab is very good. Lots of slots, all being cheap. It is a tank division after all. They rely mostly on the T-72A OBR-79, which is the T-72M, and the T-72A OBR-81, which is the T-72M1, with both tank models coming in regular and command variants. With the addition of more modern T-72B, the T-72S, with its Svia missile, as well as the ATGM-less new T-72B1 and the command T-72BK variants. Lastly, the Czechoslovakians are also featured, bringing 2 cards of the much cheaper T55 AM1s. Recon, average category, you know what this means, lots of choices, but with slots swiftly becoming expensive. You get to choose from the following. Soviet and Czechoslovakian Recon infantry is made up of Razvedka, Razvedka Sapri, Mot Razvedka, as well as the RT Razvedka. Czechoslovakian Prozkuminci, UAZ 469 or the OT65. Vehicles will include the BRDM-2 and the BRM-1K radar recon, plus the new B-Man, a curiously-looking spotting vehicle to guide in airstrikes. Okay, based on a Strela 10 anti-air unit, it replaces 2 AA missile pods with 2 pods of 24 direct fire 80mm HE rockets. In real life, these were used for marking targets for upcoming air attacks. The unit is also fitted with smoke launchers and will be the first Soviet vehicle to feature the electro-optical dazzler trait. And lastly, air recon units are the Mi-2, the Mi-24K, and the Mi-8 MTPI Flying Jammer. Anti-air is a pretty good tab. Once again, we refer to the availability of slots and their cost. Anti-air units include the Soviet Igla and Czechoslovakian PPL-RKS S2M, which is a Strela manpad team, the Soviet ZU-23-2 23mm AA gun, the Biryusa 23mm, and the Czechoslovakian Jesterka twin 30mm Spag units, and the Soviet MTLB Strela 10 and Cub SAMs. Helicopters are average, the slots and their cost, mind you. Some standard choices here, the Mi-8MT, Rocket 1 gunships, and the Mi-24 in Rocket, Rocket 2 and AT loadouts. Air is bad, yes, this refers to the category. This means only a few slots and all are being pricey. You get only the MiG-23 AA as a fighter, plus the MiG-27 in HE Napalm and MiG-27K AT2 tank busters. Tank division is well rounded in its combat arms, from infantry, tank, artillery to recon, as well as AA. It lacks, however, in supporting arms, especially in the air and helicopter support, but also logistics to a certain extent. And that's it for this week. I'm assuming next week we'll be getting the 9th, but maybe they have something else up their sleeve. But yes, there we go. That's everything for this week. Have a nice weekend, everyone. I'll see you all next week.